I came across quite an interesting video today, and I'll put the link in the description of this video. But yeah, it's of the um, grooming gangs, not Rotherham. It was actually in London. I think that's where it is, near some Buckingham Palace or something. I don't know, near some palace. That's like I can't remember what she said exactly, but somewhere in London, I think. Um, but yeah, she described horrific abuse by people who kind of groomed her, made her feel welcome in the group, but really would get her drunk, and she remembered having or basically having sex with seven different guys whilst completely intoxicated and not really remembering much. And then there's other couple of times where she went to some sort of sex party and didn't remember anything the next day. Um, she did later on say that the abuse was happening every single weekend. Um, so I don't know. It's a horrible thing, and she would have been 14, 15, 16 when this happened. There was a case I watched this morning, and it just seemed like that woman seemed like she was lying because of the vagueness, because of her. She kept darting around the story a bit, like, and not actually talking about the actual abuse. I couldn't really hear pain in her story. There's just a certain amount of numbness. And okay, you could say has this numbness because she's just not very. She doesn't have much character or much personality, or maybe she's just traumatized by it. But I feel like trauma actually comes with real pain, and if you have real pain, you actually seem more like a real person. And when if I was to compare the two interviews, this woman, she just looked bland, like she was telling a story, but she was also couldn't really remember things, and she was saying, I'm talking about stories, but I can't really remember it, and it's just I've forgotten all about it, but visions started coming back and memories, and part of me just thinks it's false memories because I don't remember anything from my childhood, whereas this second one, she's still pretty young. It was only 17 years ago, and you could, she'd given up on society basically because the social services didn't help her, and I completely believe that because I've seen the interviews that they were doing with my sister. Very bland, very just like just filling out forms and not really, almost not registering. Some of them had this sort of coldness, almost like kind of roboticness about them, and stuff. But yeah, I do definitely believe her, and I found the person that was sitting next to her was also quite insightful with how she was dealing with it and stuff. And I think the only thing that I would say is that okay, the abuse has happened. Some guys got her drunk regularly for 2 years, and the only reason why she was able to escape was because she got put in prison, which wasn't this. She got put in prison because I guess they were taking her to these sex parties and making her have sex with people, and after much abuse, they convinced her to bring someone else along, and I think that particular time it might have been that the abuse would go to the other girl, not her, or something like that. And I think that girl was raped by 4 people in one night, and they all got put in prison. And because she was 16, she was actually counted as one of the abusers, which is it's just terrible. I think that is a complete disregard for the fact that she's 16 and has known these people for a long time. If someone's 16, only met when they're 16, only went into it when they're 16, then it's a little bit different. But at the same time, if they've also been, been having sex with these guys, it's complete abuse. I feel like the government allowed lots of Pakistani people in, and they didn't want to make out that there was any problem with this. Why? I don't know why they let them in. I don't know why they've been accepting to this, but it's almost like people are robots. And listening to that story kind of made me feel angry because I know how these people think. I'm thinking about the faces that I'm seeing from the social services the people that I've met. There's one girl who I thought I like. I think Sylvia, her name is. I'm okay with her. She seemed to actually have a bit of heart. but yeah, the other, not really. Like the others are just really bland and really like this is just my job. I have to fill out the forms, almost like they've been programmed to handle cases in certain ways, and that's how they saw the children. Like cases, they're cases. If a child runs off and comes back with hickeys all over her body, even though she's only 6 or 15 or something, you know, that's just a case. That's not she shouldn't have run off. You know, I don't know. There's this horrible, disgusting way, a treatment of 16-year-olds and 14-year-olds and stuff. And you know, one thing though that I would like to talk to her, and because I felt like she was a real person, whereas not a robot like some of the other ones. But I guess thinking about it kind of made me just want to look at this book. So there's this book that I used to, I can't remember when I first found it. I believe I first found it when I was at boarding school, but I can't remember if I bought it at boarding school, because I think there's a likelihood that I found it in the library and borrowed it for a couple of weeks and then had it at the school, but then or maybe I did buy it at the school and later either I bought it when it was either one of the first books that I ever bought, or it was a book that I'd rented out from the library, but when I got the £200 book voucher that the university gave us, or anyone who entered the university, or I think maybe it was because I was dyslexic, I got a £200 book voucher, and I think this was one of the books that I bought. But if you can see, has a lovely sort of picture of I don't know if you can see that very clearly, but it's an old town, and you can't see that at all, I don't think. Well, basically it's just like an ancient Greek. It's an ancient Greek colony, and you can see all the like little Roman soldiers and yeah, you can see like lifestyle basically, and I'm looking at this picture just thinking, how many 14-year-olds do you think got raped in this village? You know, loads. 14 was pretty much the average age to get married back then. Okay, I reckon 40 or 50 was probably the average age to die too. So they were marrying and stuff a lot younger. But you know, what I would like to tell her is, shit's happened. It shouldn't have happened. It needs to change. But at the same time, what happened to you probably happened to lots of other people. Whatever happened to you would have been something that probably happened all the time back then. Or maybe not gang rape so much, but I think there was definitely a lot of child marriage, child rape and stuff. And well, do you know what happened to the rapists? Well, the rapists would be reborn in something like this. Only this time they'll be a female, and whatever they did to their people or the people in the past life would probably be something that might happen to them. They might find themselves being a child slave or just shit. Just absolute, like, lots and lots of bad things. People getting ill, not being able to look after themselves, no health doctors, no good decent medicine. Of course she had the gladiator rings, you know, all the stuff that happened on there. And you know what? All these people are not dead. Yeah, all these people died. And then they got reincarnated. And then they became like this. This is the medieval town. And a whole bunch of shit happened there. You'd have the wealthy ones, who were probably the ones that were abused in this world. So all the people that went through shit in the sort of Greek colonies or whatever, ancient Egyptians even, they died and probably became the wealthy in the Roman times, and then all the poor in the Roman times also probably became the wealthy in the medieval times, because as time was going on, the population was getting bigger and bigger, hence there was more colonies all around the world, more villages, and for every village, you know, you have a hierarchy, and yeah, the hierarchy just basically starts getting bigger and bigger. And yeah, I think it's awful what's happened to her, but I think if she saw it from a perspective of, she doesn't know what point in the reincarnation cycle she's at, you know, if she's at her third life, then whatever happened to her has probably happened to lots and lots and lots and lots of other people. And maybe she was one of the perpetrators in a past life and stuff. And I think if you see it like that, then suddenly you don't feel like you're in a small bubble of people that have just experienced something bad. You suddenly become, just to look at something like that and just think, how many 14-year-olds were forced to have sex back then? It's just probably loads. It was probably very normal to get married at that age. And okay, society's changed. We've realized that we have much longer lives, and we're not going to remember what's happened at such a young age, and that's not a good thing. It's not good to just spend the rest of your life not knowing what happened and stuff. But yeah, I don't know, but it's just something that I kind of want to put in a bit of perspective. And I think sometimes going on about how horrible something is only makes it seem worse, only makes it seem more and more horrible. So even going to prison, knowing that what she went through is kind of how I feel. I feel like I'm in a prison for doing something I haven't done, for I haven't cursed the world has cursed me, and yet I'm the one who's suffering from it. And it's forced me to do massage, and that's the only job I can get, the only way I can get money. And okay, if I don't see any more clients between now and next March, I probably have enough to keep me going. I won't have money, but I will have enough to pay bills with the 5,000 rent that I'm getting, and the 2,000 that I've managed to save up. I might be able to I might be able to survive till next May or something, maybe April. But yeah, I'm gonna try and stop because I don't want to do this. But yeah, I'm hearing her story, and I think the worst thing you can do is just go on about how bad it is. But I think her story is very strong, and I think her story is I would like to know who failed her and why. How many people are working in social services right now and don't seem to care? Why don't you test it? Why don't you get a bunch of 14-year-olds who are 14-year-old girls who are in social services right now, and get them to just tell their social worker or whoever's looking after them that they just got drunk and had sex with a bunch of Pakistani men or whatever, and just see how they react. See how many social workers just make a report and then do nothing. See how many actually take it seriously. I mean, I feel like there's a huge number of robots in this world. There's a huge number of people that are mindless, that don't seem to care, and they're maybe the reason why they don't care is because I think loads of people have had a past life, and if they were one of, I don't know, if they had a past life like that and that was just their past life, then maybe the reason why they don't care is because the idea of a 16-year-old having sex was actually just, oh yeah, well that's what I got married. I mean, maybe subconsciously they knew that they got married at 16 in a past life, hence a 16-year-old having sex, or a 14-year-old having sex is not out of the normal. Right now we are aware that it's wrong, but I feel like there's an awakening happening that it's wrong. But I feel like there's so many people that are just in this sort of numbness, in this sort of mind-numbing numbness. And I think that the real reason behind it is because a lot of them, even though they've got a new body, even though they're living in a new world, a whole new society, people are still thinking with the sort of mindset of someone from the medieval times or something, where it's just completely normal for kids to have sex, or for rape to happen. It's just, I don't know, that there are a lot of robots that would think something's wrong, but only if you tell them it's wrong. And if they are the ones responsible for reporting a crime, a lot of them wouldn't. I think Islam is partly the problem, because part of Islamic teaching is that if you get raped, you never report it because it'll only shame you. So I feel like there's, anyone that's being brought up by Islamic beliefs are completely inverted and backwards, and that's one of the root problems. Even if these people die and come back as, hopefully we can get rid of Islam, and Islam won't exist, and then these people will be brought up in a different religion in their next life. But I feel like that some of these principles of not reporting stuff and keeping silent, it's still encrusted in the sort of psychology and the mindset. I think when it comes to human psychology, people don't believe in reincarnation, but I know that that's the truth, and I feel like it's hard to believe that there is a whole bunch of social workers that would hear that one of the people that they're caring for is 14 and thinks she's been raped by 7 people. I think there's a huge amount of numbness inside these little robot people, because they don't care, they don't report it, they don't care. And I feel like part of this ideology actually stems from when maybe they were living their first life like this. I think most people, the average person's living their 4th life right now. So if they lived their first life in the medieval times, it's likely. And they're still thinking with the sort of numbness view that, problems are only problems if you make them problems, or if you think about them, hence don't think about them. I think that there seems to be this blindness or this ignorance. A problem's not a problem if you're ignorant to it. And I think that was part of the culture in the past. And I think if you can understand human psychology, I think you can do it by looking at the past and looking at pictures like this and books. It's a really good book. Finding books like this that show pictures of what it was like, and then try and imagine what would these people be like. They don't have any internet, they don't have any connection with different countries. All they know is the little world around them, the little village around them, the people around them, and it's just a little tiny bubble. And then if you imagine that all these people are not dead, all these people have been reincarnated, and if you're on your 4th life right now, then you probably lived your first life under this sort of brainwashing, under this sort of belief, under this management, and then you would have gone on to have another life, maybe somewhere like that and stuff. And if you see it not as lots of different people, I think there's a belief that you can pass down genes through you can pass down false memories to your kids or something like that. No. This is you're passing it down. You're passing it on to your next life. So if you try to look at these images and just imagine what kind of people, what the people were like during these towns, and then if you try and imagine that the characters and the ideologies are all being built up and they've all amounted to this age now. I think with cases like Diddy, everyone is like, oh my gosh, 17, 16, this is awful. But I think the reality is that without the social brainwashing that 17 and 16-year-olds should not be having sex, without that, the average person doesn't think there's anything wrong with 16 or 14-year-olds even having sex. And I think if you did your research into how many social workers there are, even present right now, where someone could say, this happened to me, see what they do, see how they react, test them, because I think there is still a huge amount of numbness to, I don't care. There's a numbness to that, and I think it stems from all these other ages where, I don't know, it was very normal to get married at 14 or 15. And yeah, that's just wanted to say all that.